Shadows of Doubt is a voxel graphics detective game that sticks you in a sandbox clockwork world. Every citizen has their own life and routine. Everyone's named and can be a suspect or victim, and it should be amazing. You're trying to up your social ranking so that you can flee this urban nightmare for a better life. It has the skeleton of something incredible until you realize its bones are so hollow that they'll collapse in almost no time at all. This game is kind of impossible to spoil, so let's talk about all of it in this XboxEra review of Shadows of Doubt. Shadows of Doubt is entirely a sandbox adventure of procedurally generated jobs and a handful of murder and kidnapping archetypes for you to solve. There is one handcrafted murder to solve right off the bat in a tutorial mission, and it's awesome. My first few hours with the game had me enthralled as I was part of this voxel-based clockwork city that felt alive. After solving the initial murder, I got dumped into the heart of the title, which is doing odd jobs to raise your social level so that you can retire to someplace far better. You're given a wide range of options on how you want your city and playthrough to set up at first if you choose sandbox mode. So you can either do The Dead of Night, which is a handcrafted murder, or just make your own city. You'll start by naming the town and your character. And you can choose things from city size to starting money, lockpick count, and a fairly sizable amount of options, though you will realize a lot of them are related to various status effects being turned off or on. Once the long process of generating a city is done, you'll head off into the night and hope the jobs and murders you get give you a snowball's chance in hell of actually completing them. The game is played from the first-person perspective, though I did only have access to PC code before launch, so I have no idea how either console version runs. It ran okay on my beefy PC, but you will want to check later coverage to see what it's like on Xbox Series X and S or PlayStation 5. The main gist of the game is that you're in a city where every NPC has a name and a daily routine. Within this maze of people and buildings, you'll have to find jobs at local restaurants to do things such as beating people up, throwing food in another's face, stealing an object, tailing people, kidnapping people, and more. You'll do these jobs to earn cash, with which you can buy a handful of items like cameras and body armor, and everything of those will take up a very limited number of inventory slots. Occasionally during these random side jobs, a murder or kidnapping will happen and you can choose to try and solve it. For the murders, there were at least like 5 or 6 archetypes that I experienced, and every job and crime to solve is a procedurally generated mix of people and places. This should lead to what would you think feel like unlimited replay value, but it became really repetitive after a couple hours. There's just not enough variety in the crimes or jobs or dialogue or anything to make this 1.0 PC and console release feel like it deserves that title after a very long time in early access. Most of the jobs will have you find a briefcase that is either handed to you or stashed in a random location that you'll use the in-game map to find. Once you have said briefcase, you'll use the clues it attaches to your menu-based pin board to start working. The board is the main mechanic in Shadows of Doubt that you will use to figure out any of the cases you are on. The initial tutorial murder case handholds you really hard and sets up an incorrect idea of how the pin board works. Nothing's ever directly pinned to it outside of your briefcase material, so every time you come across a clue, you gotta make sure you manually choose to pin it on your board. This will let you easily access phone numbers to call, addresses you can click on to find things, and the pin board is the first area I felt underwhelmed, as by the time I had solved a few murders and done a kidnapping, it just kind of felt like the same thing over and over again. That is, of course, when the start of a case actually gives you enough valid info to continue, because far too options, the descriptions you're given for an assailant or a target are really vague, and I just had no idea who it might be in this city of 100 people. I had multiple jobs and murder cases that just gave me 2 main clues, one being like, they have green eyes and they make $42,000 a year. There was nothing else to give me any idea who this person was, and even after questioning a few dozen people around the crime scene through a rudimentary UI, I had no idea who it was and ended up just dropping the case, hoping the next one would give me something tangible to go on. Controls worked well on a mouse and keyboard, though they were a little finicky when I tried on a controller on PC, which doesn't give me a ton of hope for the console versions. You'll be doing a lot of staring at voxel people and environments as you search for clues using your tools like the fingerprint scanner. Time passes quickly and clues disappear as the days go by, so if you see a job for a murder case that's over a day old, you might as well give up because any fingerprints, blood, or even the bodies might be gone by the time you get there. It's this incredible idea in practice where everything is a system, but it's rarely fun in execution, and I think that comes in part when it's so hands-off in its design that things just don't gel outside of that first handcrafted case far too often. As there is no campaign, you'll always be in the sandbox mode, which procedurally generates everything in your city based on the few options you have chosen. No matter what, the only main objective is to up your social ranking to a set number and get out of there. The city is always a grid filled with similar buildings that may have different names. One constant is City Hall, where you go to have case forms and equipment purchases. The layout of each building will have cameras, vents, a mix of locked and unlocked doors, and more. The lock and security systems can be opened or hacked with lockpicks, which you'll find around various apartments and places in the city. You can pretty much go anywhere at any time and steal anything as long as no one sees you. There's a really big risk-reward factor to the game through its systems, but it can be kinda easy to cheese once you figure them out. You can pummel someone to get information and they won't remember you did it. Going into an area that you're not supposed to and someone saw you, as long as you just do a little whoopsie-doo around the corner and they don't see you leave, they have no idea it was you, even though they were literally looking right at you. It is a game of really, really cool ideas with a major focus on choice that invariably felt like an empty shell devoid of a purpose or enough variety. The game can look great at times, using voxels and a noir art style. There's also a cyberpunk-style upgrade system that early on is pretty mundane and just like you get more inventory slots, but later on it can give you cool upgrade abilities like jumping out of a window from the top of a skyscraper and not taking any damage. Though a few of those have a negative side effect to worry about as well. The only way to upgrade your implants is to steal them out of people's homes, and in the largest city variant, there are dozens if not hundreds of apartments to go through. During the day, when most people are at their jobs, you can steal to your heart's content once you've disabled any alarm system, and it's really fun for a bit. It's just the overall lack of drive-through comes in both its quests and the city itself. These are people with names and jobs, but they all end up feeling like the same few types, just like the job and murder system. Most just don't want to talk to you unless you pay them. A few will be nice and do it no matter what if you ask for their names or address as you try to fill out the dozens of details for each person in the city. There are so many systems at play, but only a few variations in them. I started and played at least 3 to 5 hours in 4 or 5 cities, and I saw the same jobs, murders, and situations dozens of times. It lets down what is a really cool looking and great sounding game. The music's awesome, with a synthy noir cyberpunk style that fits everything you're looking at and experiencing. There is no voice acting, and most of the dialogue is heavily repeated every time you interact with someone. Wrapping things up, Shadows of Doubt should be great. A lack of variety leads to repetition so quickly that I just can't recommend this 1.0 PC and console release. If the devs do continue to support the game with new content, especially something more directed like the tutorial mission, then it could potentially become a classic. For now though, the game is a mere shadow of its potential.